afternoon. Thank you, Victor. And good afternoon, African Development Bank governors, dear ministers, the chair of the CGR System Board, leaders of international development partners, and distinguished guests, all protocols observed. It seems just right that on this first day of the African Development Bank Group's annual meetings, we gather for our first formalized follow-up to the Dakar 2 Summit, which was dedicated to transforming Africa's agricultural production. So first, where are we coming from? It's been more than a year since the start of the war in Ukraine, and we all know that the conflict's impact on global food supply and fertilizers in the Black Sea region put a spotlight on the fragility of African food systems. So January's Dakar 2 Summit was a call to action where the continent's leaders set a clear pathway to reduce dependence on food imported from outside of Africa's borders. So if you missed it, the Dakar 2 Summit was an extraordinary gathering by any measure. More than 3 dozen African heads of state and government, some 75 ministers, 12 heads of development partners, and other eminent personalities were in attendance. Most importantly, this was not just a talk shop. It was a working summit where African leaders headed boardroom-style sessions showcasing African solutions. Partners indicated $70 billion in support to transforming African agriculture. And I wanted to give an example. I attended the Dakar 2 boardroom session chaired by the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, and her team, like presenters in over 40 Dakar 2 boardroom sessions, presented country food and agricultural delivery compacts. So Tanzania's compact, again, like many others, emphasizes innovation and youth engagement, as well as public-private partnerships to deliver its ambitions. And so I know we have our governor here from Tanzania, but I wanted to lay out a little bit because I think it really is emblematic of the type of transformation that's needed across the continent. So first, scale up investments in irrigation mechanization to enable Tanzania to effectively use its land. So importantly, we know that Africa is home to 65% of the world's arable yet uncultivated land, and we have to invest to be able to use this land productively. So this is an important investment. Second, Tanzania's compact laid out plans to invest in production and large-scale distribution of fertilizer and climate-adapted seeds, in addition to agricultural research, development, and extension services. So this is critical because across the continent, we see that yields of key staple crops in Africa are 1/3 of what they are globally. And third, Tanzania plans to invest in value addition and farm-to-fork processing. So this investment in value addition is critical to transforming agriculture. Right now in Africa, the value added per hectare of agricultural land is only 37% of the world average. So a greater share of the processing of crops on the continent, farm to fork, translate into a greater share of the profits that we need to keep right here on the continent. So Tanzania aims to mobilize hundreds of millions of dollars to implement a private-led agro-industrial program, including a special agro-industrial processing zone. So this will build rural economies. So where are we now? So right now, we're deep into an accelerated effort to turn this vision and these commitments that we saw in Dakar 2 into action. So countries are finalizing the standing up of presidential delivery councils that were born out of the Dakar 2 Summit. These councils ensure that countries walk the talk of the commitments that they made in Senegal. Through over 25 Dakar 2 country roundtables that have already taken place to bring Dakar back to the countries, with 16 more planned in the coming month, country leaders are mobilizing their governments together with technical expertise and partners across the continent globally to accelerate and finalize the design of bankable projects identified in the country compacts. What's next? So ladies and gentlemen, what's next is to solidify investment and expertise from the private sector, solidify financing from development partners to implement these bankable projects. This has got to be at an accelerated pace, and at scale to realize the ambitious goals set out of agricultural transformation on the continent. And if I could just close by saying, the low bar is transforming African agriculture so that Africa can feed itself. And the high bar is so Africa can feed the world. So welcome to our Dakar 2 follow-up. We know how Dakar 2 started, and we have 2 impressive lineups of distinguished guests and experts to update on us on what's going to happen next. So let's get started. Thank you.